Hi, I'm Reverend Tom Kearns. Welcome to 333 Magic 9, where the tarot cards and the astrology stars come together to help you. A friend of mine asked me to look into the astrology of Vladimir Putin to see what was coming for him in the future. So here is his transit chart. This is the birth chart of Vladimir Putin. He has a stellium in the sign of Libra in the 12th house, which includes a Sun, Saturn, Neptune conjunction, and also the planet Mercury, which is on the ascendant. So recently, President Biden called Putin a crazy SOB. Well, he may be, but he's also crazy as a fox. By the way, both men have prominent 12th houses in their charts. So maybe Biden has some personal insight into Putin's personality. Now, Putin is said to have guile, cunning. He's said to be narcissistic, nefarious, and vengeful. Now, these characteristics are indicated not only by a very strong 12th house, but also by a Jupiter square to Pluto, which is elevated. Now, Pluto is elevated up in the 10th house and conjunct the midheaven. That is the point of career power and social success. It's important to note that Pluto was known as Hades, the god of the underworld in Greek mythology. It's also important to note that Leo is the midheaven sign. So Leo is the sign of the king or the emperor, the ruler, whatever you would like to call it. So it's also interesting to note that when Saturn crossed Saturn in Leo on other rulers' charts, especially during World War II, they fell from grace. Now, as we look into this chart, you can see that there are a number of challenging transits, and those are the planets here marked on the outside. So they are transiting the birth chart, or they're moving through the sky as we're talking about it now. And that will happen basically from April 2024 through 2027. And we're going to look at each one of these influences as a standalone energy that will be affecting this chart and the life of Vladimir Putin. The first aspect that we're going to talk about is transiting Jupiter, which will conjunct natal Jupiter in the 7th house and the sign of Taurus in Putin's chart. Now, normally, this is a very expansive and positive transit that really shows the possibility of success and expansion and doing things in a big way. And it starts a 12-year cycle of expansion. But there is also something else happening in this aspect, and as Jupiter transits over natal Jupiter, it also will activate a square that Putin has in his birth chart from Jupiter to Pluto in Leo in the 10th house. Now, this square is not necessarily a very good power. The energy indicates he wants to expand his personal power and is willing to use manipulation, dubious means of getting and holding whatever power he can, and expanding in any way he wants. Now, it also can suggest that there will be power struggles and difficulties through public opinion that will be affecting his need for expansion. And it also suggests that part of this will be Putin's fault because of a lack of humility and a sense of arrogance. So he will try to use whatever means he can to get what he wants. The first Saturn aspect I will mention is transiting Saturn squared to Mars, which will be in effect for the month of April 2025 and exact on April 18th. This is a contradictory aspect. Mars, the god of war, is impulsive and superficial. He wants what he wants and he wants it now. He is volatile and will try to dominate his enemies. Saturn is also willing to dominate others and can be brutal, but he is all about self-control, discipline, and careful planning. These planets are both referred to as malefics in astrology, and when they are in the square aspect, they can be ruthless and lead to violence and coercion. If uncontrolled, they will create friction and frustration, which can be quite dangerous and destructive. So extra care and safety is needed at this time. The next transit that we will talk about is the transit of Saturn in relationship to his sun. So Saturn will be transiting in opposition to Putin's birth sun in Libra from the sign of Aries and the 6th house. Now, this will affect his sun from June 26th through September 26th, and again from February and March in 2027. It will be in exact opposition on June 25th, 2026, 8/27, 2026, and 3/8/2027. Now, his birth sun is placed on the cusp or the beginning of the 12th house of spirituality, karma, secrets, and self-undoing. In Romans 12:19, we are told, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." And in astrology, we call this the law of karma. And Saturn is called the Lord of karma. So Putin will be facing this very powerful opposition in the house of karma from the Lord of karma, Saturn. The opposition of Saturn to the sun is always important for anyone in anyone's chart. It can lower their energy, and in this case, Putin's energy, and bring challenge from outside to his power. Now, Saturn is the planet of karma, and in opposition to the sun, you could state it like this. The sun says, "Here I am," and Saturn says, "Who cares?" So the challenge to his authority may come from his inner circle and may even involve his children. He may have to adjust the whole structure of his life because Saturn represents structure. So when Saturn later opposes his Saturn, so that's a Saturn opposition to Saturn as well as Saturn in opposition to the sun, his current structure may come crumbling down and he may have to adjust his vision of life. The challenge here is not only on the material level, because this is a very material house, but this house is a spiritual house. So it involves his spiritual essence and his inner fears. It can be a challenge to his very soul. During this same time period, we can now look at Mars, because Mars, the god of war, will be transiting over his 10th house cusp, the midheaven, and the planet Pluto, or Hades, the god of the underworld. So this point, or the top of the chart, is thought of the point of career, social success, influence, and power. Now, this Mars transit will be exact in November of 2026. This will increase the possibility of his becoming more aggressive in his efforts at success. And that can lead to more violence, more aggressiveness in his efforts to be a success. It can also lead to extremism and a big push forward. However, since Mars is transiting, it can also represent that his efforts may be self-destructive and may attract violence against his person. From April 2027 through May 2027, and again in December of 2027, Saturn not only opposes his birth sun and his birth Saturn, but also will oppose his birth Neptune and his birth Mercury. And all of these oppositions will be coming from the 6th house, and that is the house of health, daily routine, and work ethic. And it's also that house that suggests there is a need to adjust what one is doing in life. So this is an extremely complex time. He must know if he has been lying to himself. He may have to face his greatest fears and his insecurities because of the Saturn-Neptune opposition. His thinking will need to undergo a complete restructuring because of the opposition to Mercury. And this can cause a lack of belief in oneself and a lot of confusion. Now, all of these energies taken together increase the possibility of coercive plans to usurp his power, and that can lead to violence and even possibly a fall from grace. He may feel he is in a fight for his survival, and that will make him a very dangerous man. I'd like to thank you for watching. I'd like to thank you for listening. I hope you'll like my videos and share them with your friends. And if you'd like to know what's coming up for you in your life, you can go to my website, ProfessorAstrology.com, and you can order a natal or transit astrology chart or private psychic and spiritual reading. And I hope that you have a fabulous month.